There we go. All right. Oh my god. The descent into miserable content reaction within reaction within reaction. Now we're going back to Brett Cooper here a sec. I do want to watch this. I just needed to make some dinner. Oh shit. And I don't have the money to be eating out all the time. So, whew, there we go. All right, let's get back to this.
Military Academy in Texas, because the Marines don't have a college, but they have a high school. So he did that, and then basically spent the next 4 years working to get into a service academy, and got into all of them. And chose the Air Force Academy. So he spent every summer, at the summer programs, at the Naval Academy, at Air Force, at West Point, got his pilot's license at like 15 years old. So he was incredibly motivated, knew what he wanted to do with his life. So he was kind of out of the house by the time that I was born. So I didn't get to know him as well as a kid. I think I was probably around 15 years old when we really started getting close, when all the stuff, again, we can talk about later, that happened with my other brother. We really got close then. But Reed and David are the twins, and so I grew up with them and was super close.
Super close. 12 years older, and you guys are super close.
Yeah. And David died because we were all living together. So, like, when I think about my childhood, David died when I was 5 years old. So I don't have a ton of memories, unfortunately. But it was just like me and Reed and my mom. That's the surviving twin.
What kind of stuff were you experiencing at home with your mom and your dad?
I unfortunately didn't know anything different. Like, it was icy. I never saw any affection. There was a lot of disdain for each other. We lived in a big house. It was, like, very long. It would be, like, on opposite ends of it, basically. And to their credit, I think that they tried. And they tried for me, and especially after David died and my brother Reed really started struggling. I think that the damage after that was irreparable after losing a child. Mm-hmm. But they did try in their own ways. But it was like, I'm so grateful that I'm here and I wouldn't change it for the world, but it's like I look at that as like, that was probably a marriage that never should have happened. Just because they're so different. Like, and it's not like a different, like, complimentary way. Like, it's just, like, you are just... And there's a lot of affection there. And you spend 20 plus years with someone because they were married for a long time. And they got through the divorce. And they're friendly now.
How old were you when they got divorced?
15.
15.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And that's when I had emancipated myself as well.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll get there. Let's go back.
Yeah.
So your brother dies...
At 5.
At age 5.
I'm age 5. He's 17. He dies on a... They went to a school in Chattanooga. They were on the rowing team. They were both super athletic, very artistic. I mean, they were like the most well-rounded guys. They're both brilliant, incredibly artistically talented. Like, I can't even... I have
Vegan gains,
talents,
fuck
like,
you.
I can't
Go
draw
fuck
for
yourself.
crap. And they were both, I mean, brilliant. But also brilliant at math. Like, my brother Reed had a perfect SAT score. I mean, just...
I don't know. I don't know if I'm feeling it tonight. I'm in a very chill, relax, I'm going to watch something kind of mood. May do some solo Fallout London later, but I don't know. I'm not really feeling it tonight. Very, very chill. It's going to be a real chill night. But what is it? It's Saturday right now? Oh, it's Friday night. Yeah, so we have a whole weekend. We can still do something. We'll make it work.
So well-rounded, incredibly athletic. They were on the rowing team. Just good guys. And out of nowhere, David had a cardiac arrest and fell off the rowing machine. Right in front of Reed. So they were 17 years old, identical twins. They never had that, like, separation that, like, psychologically twins have to go through. And if you're not a twin, like, I don't even think I can understand what that feels like. But I've talked to enough twins now, and I've talked to Reed, 17. I think this is the We're going into the 18th year since David has died, so he's now been gone longer than he was here. And I've spent enough time talking with Reed throughout that period of like they were still one person. They had done everything together. And he watched his brother die in front of him. There were no defibrillators in the gym. There was nothing anybody could do. He was basically dead on sight. And it was Valentine's Day in 2007. And yeah, it was... I mean, that changes the family forever. And there were so many different... It's like grief is such a patchwork, like a quilt, in my opinion, because everybody's perspective and journey is different. My mom's journey was completely different than my dad's. You know, this is not my dad's biological son. He never adopted my brothers. They had a lot of... It was very tense. Like the week before David died, they had my dad and David had a huge blowout. David even went to my mom that week and was like, why are you still in this marriage? Like, this doesn't work. I think she had a ton of regret over that. And so my dad's journey was completely different. I think just because he wasn't their biological father, I mean, he had spent 14 years with them. Mm-hmm. It was very different than my mother's. Reed's journey as a identical twin was completely different, something that none of us could ever understand. My older brother Chase had a completely different journey that I don't even think I really know much about. He's military. He's like, close case, done. And he was far away at the time he was in college. Then mine was completely different than anybody else's because I didn't know him. I have these memories of things we would do together, and we would wake up on Saturdays and he would make me waffles and we'd go like ride in the car together and that kind of thing. But my grief was like growing up, and everybody has all of these memories with this person and you don't.
Do you remember how you found out?
Yeah, so it was Valentine's Day. I got a phone call from the school. And again, that's like my mom is I truly think it's one of the best things she's ever done in terms of raising us. She was so honest. There was no hiding anything. Which I think in the world of helicopter parenting and trying to protect your kids and kind of putting them in this glass box, I think that's become very abnormal, and people would look at our life and be like, why would you not shield them from this? But I'm very glad that she didn't. But it was just like, looked at me and went, David's collapsed. We need to go to put down your Valentine's. We were like having a Valentine's Day party. And we have to go. And I remember getting in the car and I had like the Valentine that I had made David. And I was just like 5 years old and holding it. Oh God, I haven't talked about this in so long. So I watched all of it. We got to the school as he was being put in the ambulance. We went to the hospital, and I had like a nurse take me out as they were, talking about what was going on, and they had no idea what happened. I was wearing lime green clogs, and I remember because we were there until very late. I was walking through the halls of the hospital. I could hear my Hannah Anderson clogs clomp through the hospital hallways. It's funny the things you remember. And they were in a very dark, purpley room. And I had no idea what happened. They think it's some kind of epigenetics of something, environmental happened. We have genuinely no idea at the time. Nothing came of the autopsy. We all immediately, especially Reed, we came to Nashville and went to Vanderbilt. They have one of the best pediatric cardiology programs in the country, probably the best. Did hundreds of tests to figure out, was there any risk for Reed, and there was nothing. Nothing. And David always drank Red Bulls in the morning. He would drink like 2 Red Bulls a day. He would drink one on the way to school, and my mom would always kind of like, David, you probably shouldn't drink that. And he would be, Mom, everybody's drinking them. But there was like a gut feeling of, I don't think this is good for you. And she asked the doctor at the time, like, do you think this like his caffeine intake? Like what, like we have no answers. What could have happened for a completely fit, no chronic illness, no history of anything, collapse and die within 15 minutes? When you have an identical twin brother standing here with no problems, who still to this day doesn't have any problems. Never had any scares or anything. And she was like, could it have been, let's talk about my mom was very matter of fact of like, let's figure it out. Like what happened? We need to, obviously like prevent this from happening to any of the other kids. She brought up the Red Bull and they like laughed at her. And last year a study came out over like from the last 10 years about the cardiac effects of drinks like Red Bull.
Shit.
And so that's just like one thing. But again, they threw around something called long QT, which is a rhythmic condition, which I go in for like EKGs and testing. We all do. Like, I don't know if Chase still does, but every 5 years or so we'd go in and I'd get routine testing, and they noticed something a few years ago. So I came back up to Vanderbilt. We did all of that, but it was nothing worth
The madness is watching an interview.
really addressing. But I monitor my caffeine intake for that reason. I look for like defibrillators in rooms at gyms and that kind of stuff. But nothing serious. But that long QT, that was just kind of a shot in the dark of like, maybe it was that. And that can be just spurred by environmental things. So yeah, that's completely out of the blue.
What did the Valentine say?
I think it was just Happy Valentine's Day. Like, love Brett. To you, David, with a little heart. It was a lollipop. It was one of those ones you get at the store where you have the little note that like sticks up on it. I still have it.
You still have it?
Oh yeah. I had a little book that I made him after the fact. My mom was, again, she's so intentional about everything. And she faces it head on. Which I think when you were in the fog of grief, I look back and I'm like, wow, you did this. But if she knew, even at that time, that like my experience was going to be so different than everybody else's. And so she, put all these little papers together and made a booklet, and she was like, I want you to draw out your favorite memories with David. She knew I would forget them. And so I have this whole little book of like my terrible stick figure drawings of, going skiing and, making waffles in the morning. And I would love when, David would be like in the car with me and he would like play Flow Rider or whatever. And, like, so I have all those written down. And she has those in her house that I can go back and look at. But I'm very like, she knew even at that point that it was going to be a very different journey for all of us. And I think that she handled mine very, very well. And she ended up running a grief organization for many years called Compassionate Friends, which, if anybody out there has experienced the death of a child or sibling, is an incredible organization that is just about the death of a child. There wasn't a chapter in the Tennessee region, and so she created one and ran it. And through that, I met kids that had been in a very similar situation as me, where they lost somebody that was older than them. And again, it's so weird because you grow up and you watch your family struggle, and you hit every Christmas and every anniversary, and Christmas was never the same in our house. Like, holidays after losing somebody so close to you will always feel just empty. Mm-hmm. Because like, this is a deep cut. I was like an English major, but Alfred Lord Tennyson is a very famous English poet, and he has a very, very long poem. It's basically a book called In Memoriam that tracks his experience through grief after losing his best friend. And I remember I read it in college, and I was just like, hit. Because I'd never heard anybody show the waves of grief over like the course of, 10 years of like, and there was these moments each year that he would cover in the poem about holidays and Christmas, specifically. Well, like, there's something about those days that are so, they're about family and about community and about coming together in love. And how can you do that when you've lost somebody that's so important? And I'm just seeing that was like, okay, it's not abnormal what my family is feeling. And having that community through that organization was really helpful. And through that, I met other kids, like I said, who had lost siblings that were older than them, because you grew up in the shadow of grief, which changes your childhood forever. You grow up desperately wanting to have the memories that everybody else does. Of like, you got 17 years with them, I got 5. You know, 3 of which I have no concept of any memory. One of which he was at a boarding school, so it's like, maybe I got 1 year. And then you feel kind of stupid, because it's like, should this even impact me? I was 5 years old. But it completely changes the trajectory of your family and your life. And then I was literally, I almost said subconsciously, but it was much more tangible than that. I didn't think I was going to live beyond 17 years in 1 week, because that was when he died.
Wow.
His birthday was February 7th. He died February 14th. Because you idolize this person, and I've talked to people who have lost parents at a young age and who have lost older siblings. And I had, 12 years of still looking up to him. He was still my older brother.
I mean, it's not just 1 year, though. You know what I mean? I mean, that even though you don't have a memory of the first 30 years, I mean, it's there.
Yeah.
I see it with my kids.
Yeah.
1 and 3, and I see my youngest, totally infatuated with my 3-year-old. And I mean, so there's that bond, that's
It's real.
forming every minute of every day.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to do anything that her brother's not doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, well, you don't have a memory of it. It's the psyche's in there.
Yeah.
It's ingrained.
And it's hard to rationalize that when you feel ridiculous. But it's like that bond, that idolization that you see with your daughter and your son, of like, you just keep having that. And I was like, I want to go do the things that he did, and I want to be as smart as he was, and I want to be as good of a person as he was. And then you get to that point, and I didn't see a life beyond 17 in a week. And I remember my birthday's October 12th. I had midterms. It was a week after that. And I had an English midterm, and then it was my second year at community college. And I had a Spanish midterm later in the afternoon, so I was sitting in the parking garage in my car, sobbing. Because I had made it. I felt so guilty.
Man. What age did you start thinking that? What age did you start thinking you wouldn't make it past 17?
Probably tween. Here's when I really started to be able to think critically about the entire experience. And as it got closer, then it was it genuinely, it felt like such a betrayal.
A betrayal?
Yeah, of him, of how did I get here? How do I get to live longer than you? Especially when you idolize somebody for so many years. You were a much better person than I was. It's you deserve so much more, and why am I here? But that's also on the flip side, it's such a fire under your ass. Of I always say, I feel like I'm living for 2 people. Because he had such big dreams. He was so smart, he was so creative. It's I never want to waste an opportunity. So my mom gave so much to me and pushed so hard for me to pursue the things that I loved that would, make me better, happier, more fulfilled.
Does that turn you into an overachiever?
For sure. Yeah.
We're doing pretty damn good.
I know, yeah. I don't even think about it as overachieving. It's just just don't stop.
Push it to the limit?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we have this is a huge veteran audience, and a lot of kids, that have lost parents, lost siblings.
Yeah.
I mean, what advice do you have for them? Especially the young kids. I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen my friends die, and I've seen their 5-year-olds show up to the casket with an American flag over it. They don't know what's going on.
No. I think...
Or maybe they do.
You know. But I don't think you understand the magnitude of it until later. You understand the magnitude because they're gone. But as you get older, you realize the magnitude of what that means for the rest of your life and what you'll carry. So I think that would kind of be the advice, is just know it will never go away. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's just like, I think people think of like, oh, you're grieving. You're in mourning, and we would have, family friends and even people in our family who would say just like, literally somebody in our family told my mom, it's been 10 years, why aren't you over it? But you'll never be over it. And you can choose to let that cripple you, or you can choose to let it fuel you. You can choose to let it determine your life in a really negative way where you are constantly living in the shadow of this, or you can make a choice to live a life that's great in spite of it and in honor of them, which I think is the decision that I made pretty clearly at a very young age. Like, I remember at like 11 years old being like, I'm doing this for me and David, and be very clear about it. And I was probably like a chronically self-aware kid, which is very abnormal, but you make a very conscious choice. Because it's been 17 years, and I still, on the anniversary of his death, was like sitting in the bank parking lot, just like crying a couple weeks ago. But it's also really special because you have the opportunity to never let somebody's legacy go away. Be able to like speak their name and share their stories for your benefit, but for other people's benefit as well. And so, yeah, grief will change over years. It will feel less all
Forgot this going to show up.
You might go, when you're in the thick of it, I think my mom would say she never felt like there would be a day that she could get through without it consuming her. She can now. She thinks about him every single day. It drives so much of what she does. It drives the fact that she's never given up on my brother Reed, who struggles so much. But it changes, and it does get easier, and you learn how to cope with it better. But it'll always be there, and so you should try to look for the beauty in it. And the other thing that she always said to me, starting from when I was very young, is that, grief wouldn't exist if we didn't love so deeply. And that's a blessing. That you got to love. It's kind of like it's love that doesn't have anywhere to go anymore. So now you can choose where you're going to put it and what you're going to do with it.
Do you believe in God?
Hmm?
Do you think your brother's watching over you?
Yeah. I think of every time I see a cardinal. Do you know the idea with redbirds that they're...
Oh, yeah, I know.
Mm-hmm. When I drive out of our house, we live in the middle of, the backwoods. There's one spot where I'm driving out on this dirt road, and every single day without fail, even in like the season when cardinals should not be there, drives right in front of my car.
How does that make you feel?
Incredible. And it wasn't there all the time. Didn't see him a lot. Say him because I'm just like, oh yeah, that's David. Started this summer. I was really going through a hard time. Felt very lost. Was really questioning if what I was doing was right, and some career decisions that I was going to be making. And that's when I started